Celebrating 48 years on the air, award-winning Farmweek is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, for many, the ag economy is declining and Congress wants to know why. Plus, they literally had another field day in Winona, Mississippi. Smart practices for small farmers. And speaking of small and southern gardening, big color with dwarf butterfly bushes. And in our feature, one last chance to meet the reigning tree farmers of the year. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. So good to have you with us again here on Farm Week. The ag economy still very much on everyone's radar. Recently, the House Ag Committee held a hearing to review the state of farm country, including supply chains and the ag safety net that supports rural America. Peter Tubbs has more.
The House Agriculture Committee held a hearing on the declining condition of the farm economy. Witnesses reported that high input costs are squeezing margins, and a more expansive farm safety net may be required in the next farm bill.
Could you discuss about the current state of farm safety programs that have affected agricultural lenders and their ability to support farmers?
From a safety net perspective, obviously crop insurance, I believe, is critical. It's part of the farm bill. It's critical both for the farmer and benefits them greatly. And I also believe that having a correlation to the cost to produce versus the market is really important, because there isn't always a strong correlation between that cost to produce and the market price versus what a reference price could do from a safety net perspective. And as has been said by some of my esteemed colleagues here, it's important that I believe it's important that farmers can at least break even.
What have you identified as the main barriers to access to crop insurance for small farms?
Well, we're actually trying to address that question and are collecting data actively right now. Are they familiar with what the federal crop insurance products are? Many of them are not. And so from a fundamental risk management perspective, many of our small and minority farmers don't even understand the value of how they can transfer and manage risk using federal crop insurance.
Small-scale farmers are all over Mississippi and America, and they're often overlooked. You might be surprised just how much they contribute to your local economy. But how do they make ends meet farming on only 5 acres or so? We recently attended a field day where these hardworking people had the chance to share experience and find experts to help. In Winona, Mississippi, right off the highway, is a small-scale farm about 5 acres, owned by Mr. John Davis. It was here that the Alliance of Sustainable Farms, in cooperation with NRCS and MSU Extension, hosted a field day, one of many such events they do throughout the year, showcasing best management practices and giving other small-scale farmers the opportunity to ask questions and get answers from the experts.
NRCS, Extension, Mississippi State University, they all are doing a good job. Extension is more so education, that kind of thing in the county offices, but we all need to do more. That's why today we have 3 of the newest professors at Mississippi State, all focused on vegetable production. So their jobs is to come out to the community and come to farms like this and support them in their work and help them address the challenges they're facing.
Mr. Davis, the farm owner, participated in the day's events, both giving advice and using the opportunity to network, one of the biggest advantages to these sorts of field days.
I always love homegrown, fresh produce. I always loved it. And because if you grow it yourself, then you know what you got in it, what kind of chemicals you have on it, and it's just healthy for you. We have approximately a good number, maybe for about 65 to 75 people on site here at this time. Many of them are small-scale farmers, some beginners, some are just want to get started.
And that's a big part of these cooperative events. They're a good place for those interested in small-scale farming to get their foot in the door. For Extension, it's also a chance to serve the community.
I think this is pretty special. I think one of the things that I've learned from the field day is really that ability to give back. right? They talk about cluster farming, where you've got small farming operations, and these operations are working together to share resources, to share knowledge, and to really partner with one another so that they can have a better opportunity not only for themselves but for their community. We held an event a few weeks ago where we focused on Vision 2030, right? The division and sort of our look at the role that ag has in the economic viability of our state. And so I think these small farms in these rural communities play a vital role in that economy. And so this is the perfect blend of that.
And we just want people to learn how to do it right, how to do it with fewer and fewer chemicals, and build relationships and build a network, because it's important for small farmers to compete, and they compete better when they work together. They can compete better in the marketplace. So we want to help them be successful and try to invest in them as they invest in their farms.
Working together to build relationships and share knowledge with the help of the Alliance, NRCS, and Extension. Small-scale farmers are much more likely to succeed.
What's the old saying? Good things often come in small packages. This week in our Southern Gardening segment, we refer to them as little giants. Dwarf butterfly bushes produce big-time color for such small plants. Here's Eddie Smith.
Today, Southern Gardening is at the home of Patricia Holliday, admiring her beautiful butterfly bushes. Patricia is a master gardener who has fallen in love with these plants and has them growing throughout her landscape. Butterfly Candy Little Coconut Butterfly Bush will elevate any garden with its abundant clusters of fragrant white flowers. The flowers bloom in ascending order, working their way from the bottom to the tip of the cone-shaped panicles. Little Raspberry is another butterfly bush in the Butterfly Candy series that provides a pop of color in the landscape. Every one of its branches ends in a cluster of tiny, raspberry pink, sweet, scented blooms, jam-packed into vertically pointed, tight clusters. Pugster is another series of butterfly bushes in Patricia's landscape. Pugster Blue Butterfly Bush is a compact and dwarf variety of butterfly bush known for its vibrant blue-purple flowers. It blooms non-stop from early summer through frost with true blue flowers, each with a tiny yellow-orange eye in the center. Pugster Amethyst and Pugster Pinker are also found throughout Patricia's gardens. Thanks to thick, sturdy stems, the Pugster series offers vastly improved hardiness and winter survival over other types of dwarf butterfly bushes. All of these plants are drought tolerant, attract pollinators, and resist deer and rabbits. Whether you are looking to create a focal point in your landscape or add a touch of elegance to your patio, dwarf butterfly bushes are a great choice. I'm Eddie Smith, and I will see you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but stick around. Coming up, meet once again the 2023 Tree Farmers of the Year. They're a husband and wife team, owners of 300 acres, a quarter century of grooming this forested land full of prized hardwoods and pines. He's a numbers man, she's an artist, but together they've poured their heart and soul into their beloved tree farm, helped by a team of solid forestry professionals. One more chance to meet the reigning Tree Farmers of the Year. That's coming up. Don't go away.
Here's this week's Farm Week calendar. First, coming up quickly, Tuesday, August 6th from 9 to 1 in Starkville, a row crop field day brought to you by Mississippi State Extension and MAPHIS. Look for plenty of educational programming, and there will be an air-conditioned lunch. There's no charge for this event, but registration, which closes on August 1st, is required. Just visit the Extension website online. Next, a big heads up for Coastal Biodiversity Day and BioBlitz on Saturday, September 21st in Biloxi. This will be a day full of environmental exploration led by experts on insects, plants, bats, and more. No charge for this event, and there's no sign-up required. Just show up ready to have fun. There will be snacks, water, and t-shirts. You can sign up for updates on the event, however. Just visit the Extension website online. For more info, email Mandy Rigsby at this address. And that's this week's Farm Week calendar.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations, and their faith. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance toward the views of others. I believe that education is a lifelong process and the greatest university is the home, that my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an Extension professional.
Time for the market report. Farm costs going up according to the USDA.
No big surprise considering all the fluctuations we've seen. We'll get into it, but first, the numbers. What were last week's biggest gains and losses? And then the 2023 Farm Expenditures Report. What did it tell us? And finally, in our row report, beans had the biggest price drop in one day so far this year. What happened? So, markets closed recently, trending slightly up, row crops getting the better of it while livestock split. Let's take a look. Last week's biggest gain, wheat, up 21.25 cents. That's more than a 4% increase from the previous week. Last week's biggest loss, lean hogs, down nearly 13.5 cents, down more than 14.5% from the previous week. Last week, the USDA released its 2023 Farm Expenditures Report, a detailed look into what exactly the ag sector's costs look like on a national level. In short, expenses are up all around compared to 2022 for both row crops and livestock farms. Here are the details. U.S. farm production expenditures in 2023 estimated about $482 billion, up $29 billion from 2022, a near 6% increase. The four largest expenses in the U.S. for 2023 total about $239 billion, nearly 50% of total costs. These include feed at about 17%, livestock, poultry, and related expenses at about 12%, farm services at about 11%, and labor at about 10%. Crop farm costs increased about 8%, livestock about 5%. The largest expenditures for row crop farms are labor, farm services, fertilizer, lime, soil conditioners, and rent. For livestock farms, feed, livestock, poultry, and related expenses, and farm services. In this week's row report, crop prices rising slightly. However, the biggest news was soybeans, and although they technically rose, initially they were much higher, only to dramatically fall over 30 cents in one day. I spoke with Extension row crop economist Will Maples to find out why.
Row crops have been continuously going down all year. Soybeans hit particularly bad this past week. Why?
Yeah, so the soybean market gave us a little bit of a glimmer of hope last week. We actually saw it up through the first half of the week, but then Friday happened, and it was down nearly 32 cents on the day. That's the worst day the November soybean contracts had this year. And really, it was all weather driven. So first of the last week, we got some weather reports that looked like some extreme heat was going to come into the Corn Belt, into the Midwest region. August is the biggest time for soybeans to be made. So that weather report started driving prices up as it looked like we might have some challenges. But then Thursday into Friday morning, the weather reports changed. A lot of that extreme heat moved further west out of the region. And then that threat was gone, so soybean prices started plummeting again. We saw it even lead into Monday. The market was down nearly 26 cents at one point early Monday morning, but since then it closed about 9 cents down, only 9 cents down, which gives us somewhat maybe of a hope we might be at the bottom of the soybean market with the way we saw the sporadic trading get so large on that Monday, but then close only at 9 cents under. But still going forward, we're still looking at big supplies. We're having demand issues on soybeans. The export side of the equation is tough. I mean, we're way off where we have been the last few years on soybean exports. So going into harvest, things still just aren't adding up well for the soybean market.
Fair enough. And we all know that when one grain goes, other grains tend to follow. So how's corn looking in that same respect?
We saw corn down a little bit too on that Friday that we saw the bloodbath in soybeans, but corn's still just kind of trading sideways over the last couple of weeks in that 390 to 405 region. We're still looking at a large corn crop this year. So as we go into harvest, we got a large crop coming. The export side, demand side of corn, there are some bright spots. But we got a lot of crop coming in this year. It's going to be hard to see any type of market rallies before harvest, before we get into kind of that post-harvest period and let demand take over.
Last week, we spoke to a farmer who said essentially a lot of the soybeans were planted late this year because of a really wet spring.
Yeah.
And same thing with corn. And so as a result, a lot of corn fields and soybean fields got flooded early on in the season. There's a lot of preventative planning going on right now. So I'm sure you're well aware of all of that. Are there any changes that have been made, or are things still status quo on that?
Yeah, so it was kind of a late crop getting planted. We are starting to see some corn harvest in the state, especially further south in Mississippi. So a wet spring, how does that impact yield? The crop really doesn't show up till harvest. You can't really drive by a field and see that, oh, that was late planted or it was wet planted, like you can see a drought situation. So as we start kind of seeing some yields come in, we'll get a better idea of what impact that might have had on the crop. We do start getting some prevented planting numbers next month. FSA will start releasing some reports showing us how much prevented planting was claimed by producers in Mississippi, and that'll give us a better idea of, what we can expect from an acreage standpoint in the state and nationally.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. Now, as promised, one last chance to meet the reigning tree farmers of the year before we announce new ones coming up before you know it. They're a very special husband and wife team, different from each other in a lot of ways, yet similar in the most important ways. Zach and I were treated to a tour of their beautiful tree farm when we shot this story, an example of what makes Mississippi so beautiful. Here's Zach's story about Jesse and Penny Purvis.
I've been involved in it one way or another my whole life.
That pretty much sums up the professional life of Jesse Purvis. One way or another, every job he's worked, every customer he's served, everything he's learned directly or indirectly has helped him become the tree farmer he is today. With Penny, his wife of 45 years, by his side, together they lovingly care for each other and their 300-acre tree farm in Rankin County, Mississippi. It's as much a peaceful getaway as it is a revenue producer, made all the more peaceful and profitable by their combined discipline and attention to detail.
I enjoy being in the woods, hunting, fishing, all that kind of stuff to go with it. But at the same time, long-term plan was to try to have something that would also add to our retirement income. So the timber piece of it would do that. And especially as I acquired these properties and started planning, I got involved with having a consulting forester. And we did things, either clearing and planting or control burns or sprays or whatever. Tried to enhance the wildlife, but also make sure it produced some future income for us.
I am so proud of it. And I think I'm more proud of it because I'm so proud of what Jesse has done to piece it all together with a number of acquisitions to come to this acreage that we have. So proud that he built the cabin, because you come out here and it's quiet, but then at night you can hear the coyotes sometimes, or you can hear the owls hooting, and you'd hear the frogs and you'd hear the birds singing, and you'd get out and walk and the rabbits would be scampering. And so it's just my place to come and just kind of regroup a little bit.
The place, as they call it, is their well-groomed pride and joy, the result of their 2 decades of hard work and relationship building. It's also the result of Jesse's continuous learning. A graduate of Mississippi State in ag economics, he lit the fuse on his career 35 years ago when he took his college diploma one day and started as a loan officer at Federal Land Bank the next.
Roughly half of our portfolio was timberland. Some of it was multi-thousand acre tracts, some of it was 20, 30 acre tracts. Had full-time farmers, part-time farmers, business people that owned little land, places like this out in the country. So we had a lot of timber involved in what we did. The land bank trained all of us to do some timber evaluation and recognize a lot of the difference. Say, some people, they can't hardly tell the difference between a pine and a sweet gum. Well, we learned all that.
Jesse and Penny make an unusual couple. She is an artist and taught art for 20 years, eventually teaching gifted third graders. Needless to say, Jesse is a numbers man, far more analytical. On the other hand, they approach the foundational side of their personal and work lives literally hand in hand. That has allowed them to make solid decisions where their tree farm is concerned. And they were smart enough to brainstorm with some experts along the way. One of them said Jesse was so knowledgeable, he could be a consulting forester himself. If you were to visit the farm, chances are Jesse and Penny would give you the royal treatment.
They would eagerly give them a tour and start educating them, because Jesse is a wealth of information. He can show you exactly what he did right or wrong, and it's like a showcase out here. Tell them, get a forestry consultant. Come to the Rankin County, your county, whichever county you live in, county association, forestry association meetings. You become educated, they feed you. You'll talk to other landowners just like yourself. They can ask questions, and it's just get them pointed in the right direction.
Jesse and I worked together for years and years, since in the early 90s, and he's been such a great influence on my career. I learned a lot from him, and because he's an appraiser, he knows a lot about forestry, that as a forester, I really wasn't that strong in those areas. So he changed how I thought about forestry and the investment of forestry.
Jesse's done a lot of work on the farm. This part of the property was pretty rough in the late 90s. Jesse and company harvested enough timber from it to pay for a dozer operator to come in and shape things up. Between that, a QVM spraying after a thinning, and a controlled burn after that, it's an entirely different piece of land now. Here, at a low-water crossing, Jesse built up under it with concrete pads from the old chicken farm that used to be here. He also brought in a sturdy cattle gap, sturdy enough that heavy equipment can drive over it. The result? Far fewer clogs.
Do you think we'll see the alligator today?
I don't know. I hadn't seen her the last week or two, but
And speaking of water, Jesse's careful to preserve ponds on the farm. One of them is home to wildlife you might expect further south. An alligator that shows up from time to time. And here, one of 3 creeks that eventually lead to the city of Jackson's water supply runs near the farm's cabin and is watched carefully. Another pond out front is one of the farm's more scenic areas. Overall, the Purvis Tree Farm doesn't have a lot of hills and valleys, but it is home to a mix of trees that will eventually make for a solid harvest. It's a mix that Jesse's especially fond of, compared to what it looked like years ago in the middle of a clear cut.
I thought I would just take and knock it down and plant pines, and when I got to looking, man, what was regenerating was the good prime species of hardwood, so I left it. And now it's getting big enough I can see through it. The deer and the turkeys really like it in there, and it's going to be good going on.
Jesse is a lifelong learner and a relationship builder. He's particularly proud of his relationships with extension agents.
Yeah, I've been involved with the Mississippi State folks for years. And even before that, when I was with Land Bank, it wasn't forestry, but the extension agent in each county, as I moved around with Land Bank, that's one of my best contacts. If I needed to learn who in various counties, potential customers, existing customers, who other people was that I needed to know or do business with, that was the best source of information I could have. And if I needed to sponsor a meal to do some kind of information meeting, usually the county agent was the cooker. You know, he cooked the meal for me. So I go way back with them.
Bottom line, say Jesse and Penny, the tree farm has been a true gift. They're grateful for its beauty and the way it provides a living. If she has any regrets, says Penny, it's that her father, who passed away before they purchased the farm, never got a chance to see it.
I guess that's the one disappointment about it, is that I wish Daddy could have seen it. He would have been so proud for us, so pleased for us, and he would have loved coming here.
What a fabulous couple. Congratulations once again to Jesse and Penny Purvis. Well, next time on Farm Week, another chance to meet the 2023 Loggers of the Year. They bring to life one of the top industries in Mississippi, truly a family business. Last year, in fact, they harvested nearly 1 million tons of timber.
There's more to this story, though, including the life-threatening challenges this family faced along the way.
Join us for an inspiring feature, Mississippi's Logging Heroes, next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.